The Gospel of Matthew holds a terrifying psychological law explaining exactly why wealth naturally concentrates in fewer hands. Scientists in 1968 called it the Matthew effect, but ancient texts mapped the pattern centuries earlier. Why does the system reward people who already have abundance while stripping everything? Drop a comment below if you have ever felt like the financial system is rigged against you. Most people think the parable of the talents is a simple religious moral story. It is actually a brutal description of network science and human behavior. The ancient text describes a master handing out heavy bags of silver. He gives 5 bags to one servant. He gives 2 bags to another. He gives just 1 bag to the final servant. Notice that the distribution is completely unequal from the very beginning. The master did not care about creating a level playing field. He distributed resources based on their existing ability to handle them. Modern banks operate exactly like this ancient master. They do not lend money to people who desperately need it. They lend money to people who already have assets. This is the foundation of preferential attachment in network theory. The more connections a node has, the more new connections it attracts. Wealth follows the exact same mathematical distribution loop. The first 2 servants immediately put their money to work. They doubled their bags of silver through active trade. But the 3rd servant was completely paralyzed by intense fear. He dug a hole in the dirt and buried his silver. Behavioral economists call this specific behavior extreme loss aversion. The pain of losing something feels twice as powerful as winning. When you operate from scarcity, your brain forces you to hide. You seek absolute safety instead of seeking asymmetric growth. Tell me below if fear has ever stopped you from starting a business. The master eventually returns to collect his capital. He praises the servants who took calculated risks. Then he turns to the servant who hid his money. The fearful servant thought he was being responsible by preserving capital, but the master calls him wicked and completely lazy. This is a shocking psychological twist in the text. The text equates financial passivity with moral failure. If this is making sense, hit subscribe because we decode these patterns weekly. Look at what happens to the buried silver. The master strips the single bag from the terrified servant. He does not give it to the guy with 2 bags. He hands it directly to the richest servant with 10 bags. This is where the famous and controversial verse appears. To everyone who has more will be given in abundance. From the one who has not even what he has will be taken. It sounds incredibly unfair on the surface. It sounds like the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer. That is because it's a universal law of nature. Sociologist Robert Merton studied this exact phenomenon in the 20th century. He realized that elite scientists get disproportionate credit for discoveries. A famous scientist gets all the attention for a joint paper. An unknown scientist gets completely ignored for the exact same work. Merton named this systemic pattern the Matthew effect. It applies to fame, status, intelligence, and especially capital accumulation. Wealth acts like a massive gravitational well in outer space. The larger the mass, the stronger the pull on surrounding objects. When you have capital, you can survive market crashes easily. You can buy assets when they go on sale. The broke person must liquidate their assets just to buy food. Drop a comment if you notice prices rising faster than your income. This creates a compounding divergence between social classes over time. But the root cause is not just institutional systems. The root cause is a profound neurological difference in mindset. The rich servant possessed an abundance feedback loop. Success releases dopamine in the brain, which increases confidence. Higher confidence allows you to take better calculated risks. The broke servant was drowning in toxic cortisol levels. High stress levels shrink the prefrontal cortex over time. This destroys your ability to plan for the long term. You become trapped in short-term survival thinking. If this is shifting your perspective, hit subscribe for more decodes. The buried talent represents stagnant and unused potential. Money is a tool of movement and constant exchange. When you freeze your money out of fear, you kill its utility. The universe penalizes stagnation in every single domain. A muscle that is not exercised will naturally atrophy and waste away. A mind that stops learning will steadily lose its cognitive sharpness. Capital that does not circulate will eventually be eroded by inflation. The 3rd servant thought he was protecting his future. In reality, he was ensuring his own financial destruction. He blamed the master for being a harsh and demanding man. This is a classic psychological defense mechanism called externalization. When people fail, they often blame the rigged economic system. They blame the banks, the politicians, or their upbringing. The master accepts his premise, but holds him accountable anyway. He says, "If you knew I was demanding, you should have used the bank." Even the bare minimum of interest would have been acceptable. This proves that doing absolutely nothing is the worst option. Share your thoughts below. Do you think wealth is mostly mindset or luck? The Matthew effect means that small initial advantages compound massively. Think of a snowball rolling down a steep, snowy mountain. It starts smaller than a baseball in your hand. As it rolls, it picks up more snow every single second. By the bottom, it is a massive, unstoppable boulder. If you start with zero assets, your snowball cannot even begin rolling. This is why the first $10,000 is the hardest to save. It requires swimming against the current of a regressive system. Once you cross that threshold, the math starts working for you. Your investments begin generating their own separate streams of income. You are no longer trading your finite hours for depreciating paper. You have entered the positive feedback loop of Matthew 25. The system naturally transfers resources to those who maximize them. If this is hitting home, hit subscribe to join our community. Look at how nature distributes leaves on trees or water in rivers. A few massive rivers carry most of the planet's fresh water. A few giant stars hold most of the galaxy's total mass. This is the Pareto principle operating across the entire cosmos. 80% of outcomes flow from 20% of inputs. Scripture was trying to warn us about this geometric reality. It is not an ethical statement about what is morally good. It is an empirical observation of how reality actually functions. If you treat money as something to hide, you will lose it. If you treat money as a seed to plant, it will multiply. The fearful servant focused entirely on what he could lose. The profitable servants focused entirely on what they could gain. This subtle shift in focus changes your entire life trajectory. It alters which opportunities your brain notices every day. It changes how you respond to economic volatility and chaos. Drop a comment below if you are ready to unbury your talent. The real tragedy is that the broke servant stayed broke by trying to stay safe. His strategy for security became his ultimate trap. True security does not come from hiding what you currently have. True security comes from developing the capacity to multiply resources. The master rewarded the capacity, not the actual silver itself. That is why the rich can lose everything and build it back fast. They possess the internal behavioral code of multiplication. The broke person focuses only on consuming or hoarding. Both of those behaviors lead straight back to zero. If this is making sense, hit subscribe to catch our next decode. Modern algorithms use this exact scriptural law to capture your attention. The videos that already have millions of views get recommended more. The small creators with zero views stay buried in the algorithm. It is the Matthew effect governing the digital age. You cannot fight this law by complaining about the rules. You can only win by understanding how to use the momentum. Start small by multiplying whatever resource you currently hold. It could be a small amount of money or a unique skill. It could simply be your daily focus and discipline. If you bury your skills out of insecurity, they will vanish. If you put them to work, the world will give you more. The math of the universe does not care about your excuses. It only tracks your output, your risk, and your growth. The separation between the rich and poor starts inside the cranium. It is a biological echo of a 3,000-year-old parable. Your brain either compounds fear or it compounds resourcefulness. You must choose which loop you want to activate today. Stop digging holes in the dirt for your potential. Epigenetics now proves that financial trauma alters gene expression exactly like scriptural tracking predicted. The universe takes from the stagnant and gives to the active without emotion. If this changed how you see things, hit subscribe for weekly new decodes. Tell me in the comments, are you currently burying your talent or trading it actively? Your financial future depends entirely on how you answer that question tonight.